Hi, this is Greg Johnson with Blue Book Services. I'm joined today by Mark Campbell, CEO of ProduceIQ. We run a weekly ProduceIQ analysis piece at the beginning of the week in which it looks at overall price trends in the produce industry. And the past few weeks, your index has been a little bit out of whack, and the problem is cherries. So Mark, why don't you explain a little bit what's been going on and what a possible solution is to your index?
Sure. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me. Yeah, cherries are throwing a monkey wrench in our index. The USDA stopped reporting data about 2 weeks ago. If you're not familiar, cherries are projected to be about a 25% yield reduction, plus they're having pack out problems. And so suppliers are holding them close to the vest and making sure they're covering their customers. And our index relies on USDA prices. And so when they're not being reported, it creates a gap. The interesting thing about cherries is they're priced so expensive compared to every other item. So it sticks out like a sore thumb when a cherry is missing in the index. They're over $4 a pound, where many of the other items are less than $1 a pound. And at this time of year, cherries comprise a fairly large amount of the index, almost 15%, because we do a seasonally weighted index. And so as the fresh produce industry changed throughout the year and a produce buyer is deciding what he's spending his money on, that's how our index flows from week to week. So it's not static, but we use a 5-year rolling average for that particular week.
So put another way, your index reflects kind of what a buyer's department would look like. Is that right? So this time of year, they would have cherries in the department and it would have an overwhelming effect on their overall department budget, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the real world, that is still happening today. It just so happens that because we're reflecting that from the USDA, it's not picking up in the methodology what's really happening.
So the problem with this to me is that not having cherries really throws the index off and kind of takes away its value of providing an overall idea of what the produce market's doing. What can you do about that?
Yeah, so if you're only going to look at the one number and say the overall index, it's skewed. It's not allowing us to tell the story that we want to tell. And so there's either really two solutions. We either remove cherries from our top 40 commodities, in which case the result is maybe a rather boring index, less volatility, less seasonality to it, or we simply supplement with estimated FOBs based on market data with shippers as opposed to relying on the USDA.
So that's what you'll do in the future.
Yeah, so the next time we'll fix it and this arises is we'll have a way to do our own estimates.
Okay.
So it gives a better
accurate by USDA, right?
Yeah, they need to get back to work.
Right.
They should make an estimate.
We can make estimates together.
Yeah.
So the whole cherry thing is an interesting deal because there are still cherries in the market, and I know it's a reduced crop, but so it means it's going to be a more expensive crop. What are you hearing as far as how that's going to fit in with the overall inflation and the kind of consumer hurting with the big increase in food prices?
Yeah, great question. And as you're noting, the market's all over the place on cherries. A lot of the crop is pre-sold under programs with committed prices, and so they might not reflect really what a cherry could fetch today. But with the consumers, there's a fear among the cherry shippers that how much can a consumer tolerate? If we're selling FOB at cherries at more than $4 a pound, those cherries into the retail store are going to want to be priced over the sort of magical $4.99 type number. They're going to be $5.99, $6.99, and if a consumer is concerned about filling up their tank of gas, are they really going to pay $6.99 for cherries, or are they going to substitute, perhaps fresh strawberries, which are pretty affordable right now?
Yeah, that's one of the things that Pamela and I have talked about, including in last week's Week in Review. we talked about one of the things retailers can do is when they have these random weight bags and take cherries at $6.99. In the past, they've filled a bag like that with 2.5 pounds of cherries. Now at $2.99, 2.5 pounds of cherries, $10. That's not that bad. $6.99. Now you're getting close to $20. I don't think that's going to fly with the consumer right now.
No, you'd have to have a passion for cherries and, recognize the season. We're in Florida, it's not local grown for us. I don't think the Florida consumer is as in tune with whether or not it's cherry harvesting season as opposed to someone in the Northwest or the North. So I think overall, the only buyers willing to pay those high amounts are in types of stores that really can affluent stores and areas that recognize the season.
Yeah. Well, speaking of seasonality, we're starting to get into peak summer, and we start to see local deals all around the country. What is that doing to your index?
Yeah, so local is starting a little bit earlier this year with the heat, and they should have abundant product. The USDA reporting generally gets a little bit more scattered, and prices are variable just depending on freight and logistics and location. So, the index itself is not really affected, but the overall market will be interesting to watch, and particularly as it relates to when you have this much heat and you have a season coming on early, it also tends to end early. It tends to cause gaps later. Now, Georgia is just, resetting starting for the fall. So after the local deal, it'll move back down to Georgia and Florida. So we'll see how the rest of the summer turns out. But it's been fairly rocky. Last year had a pretty big gap between the summer and the fall. Nogales started a little late, and that potential exists again.
All right. Well, that's something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Great.
All right. Thanks for your time today, Mark.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
All right.